takes it back, and here we go, the Bolt, and he lands a foot, even a no-footer.
Not the heel clicker, I think he wanted to go heel clicker on that Bolt.
October 14th, 2012. Millions of viewers watch as skydiver Felix Baumgartner ascends to the edge of space, takes a small step, and then free falls about 120,000 feet down to Earth. During his descent, he not only broke the sound barrier, but a handful of world records as well. However, this spectacle was not from NASA or SpaceX. When you look a little closer, you see the unmistakable symbol of Red Bull. Of course, this is just one of countless examples of Red Bull's extreme and unorthodox marketing strategies. They're responsible for 10-story motorcycle jumps, snowboarding down an active volcano, not to mention owning multiple racing, football, and esports teams. So how did this simple energy drink, which started out as an obscure medicinal syrup, become not only one of the biggest disruptors in the beverage industry, but also one of the best marketed products ever? By the end of 2022, the global energy drink industry will be worth around $90 billion, and sitting on top of the caffeinated throne is Red Bull, who in 2021 alone sold more than 9.8 billion cans across 172 countries, more than one can for every person on the planet. And yet, despite this, Red Bull began from the most unlikely and humble of beginnings. Chaleo Yoovidhya was born in rural Thailand, and his parents were duck farmers who also sold fruit. They had very little money and couldn't afford to give their children a formal education. Thus, Chaleo grew up working on a farm with very little prospects. However, when his parents sent him off to Bangkok to go and work with his brother as a pharmaceutical sales rep, he worked extremely hard and saved up enough money that in 1956, he was able to open his own small business, which he called TC Pharmaceutical Industries. Initially, the business was designed purely to sell medicines, such as antibiotics that he imported. However, around this time, pharmaceutical companies in Japan had started creating herbal syrups labeled energizing tonics. They were a big hit, and soon started getting imported to Thailand as well. After nearly 10 years of running TC Pharmaceutical Industries, Chaleo decided he wanted to create his own version of these energy tonics. However, Chaleo saw that the current products on the market were quite expensive and targeted more towards wealthier consumers. Given that he came from poverty himself, he knew that it was actually the blue-collar working man who needed the energy much more. Construction workers, farmers, people doing lots of physical labor which required constant attention and energy. So after analyzing the formulas of other drinks on the market, Chaleo created his own similar elixir containing caffeine, B vitamins, and a chemical called taurine. But what truly set Chaleo's concoction apart from the competition was the inclusion of large amounts of sugar, giving the syrup a more appealing flavor and even more of an energy boost. He named the beverage Krating Deng. In Thai, Deng means red, which for him symbolized perseverance. But Krating doesn't actually mean bull, it means gore, which is a relative of the water buffalo and the largest species of wild cattle in the world. The reason for the choice is that Chaleo wanted the brand rooted in imagery of strength and power. However, his drink was hardly an overnight success. At the time, products from countries like Japan and South Korea dominated the market. But Chaleo's decision to focus more on provincial and rural parts of Thailand, unlike his competitors who focused on big cities like Bangkok, proved to be a wise choice. To get things started, Chaleo gave some free samples to truck drivers who were working long hours and needed help staying alert, and he pitched it as a stimulant to improve energy and concentration. It then steadily grew via word of mouth and began to grow in popularity amongst Thailand's working class. Using the money from initial sales, Chaleo began sponsoring Muay Thai matches, which was the most popular martial art in Thailand and a big part of Thai culture. This not only helped his drink get recognition, but created an association with high energy and power. This was a great strategy, because most of the other energy drinks at the time were pretty generic, whereas right from the start, Chaleo focused on building a brand, and his drink almost became a symbol of perseverance amongst the working class. By 1980, his product had become a big success all over Thailand. However, it was an unlikely encounter with an Austrian businessman selling toothpaste that would soon make this drink a multi-billion-dollar global empire. Whilst it was Chaleo who first created the drink that would later become known as Red Bull, it was a man named Dietrich Mateschitz who helped the business become what it is today. Dietrich had studied world trade at the University of Commerce in Vienna, although between partying, traveling, and chasing girls, it took him 10 years to graduate. However, he was always known for his wild, imaginative ideas, and after graduating had worked his way up to become international marketing director of a German company called Blendax, who manufactured products like skin creams, shampoo, and toothpaste. As part of his job, Dietrich had to travel all over the world. This meant many long days and nights of airports and flights. On one particularly exhausting trip from Europe to Thailand, where he was meant to be attending an important meeting, he felt so tired that he went into a local store and asked if there was anything that could help him. It was here that he discovered Chaleo's energy drink, Krating Dang. Dietrich tried it, and in just a few minutes, he not only felt more energized, he no longer had his jet lag. He became an avid drinker of the product. But at this time, it was only available in Thailand. Shortly after this, Dietrich read a newspaper that the highest taxpayer in Japan was another one of these energy drinks. This confirmed to him just how popular these products were in Asia, and yet there was nothing really like it in the West. Now, to be honest, Dietrich had been getting kind of bored of his job at Blendax, and so he decided to make a very bold move. He quit his well-paying job and tracked down Chaleo, saying he wanted to go into business with him. Dietrich's plan was to take Chaleo's energy drink international and introduce it to European consumers. After a little persuading, the two men went into business together, each putting in $500,000 of their savings. They agreed Dietrich would run the operational side, whilst Chaleo would continue to focus on the product side. They both got 49% of the company, with the remaining 2% going to Chaleo's son. Dietrich's first big decision was they should form a new separate company for this called Red Bull, which would be simpler and more memorable than the literal translation of Red Gore. And thus in 1984, Red Bull officially was founded in Dietrich's home country of Austria. However, before launching, they did some customer research to test how European audiences responded to the product, and the feedback was awful. Trial groups said the drink tasted disgusting, and market research suggested the drink was too unhealthy and not appealing at all. But the two Red Bull founders so strongly believed in the idea that they pushed on anyway. They made some important changes using the feedback though, like carbonating the drink and switching to a slimmer, sleek silver can which looked more premium and distinguished it from competitors. Dietrich also said that in order to feel like a premium product, they had to have a premium price, and so they charged nearly double what consumers were used to paying for other carbonated drinks. Pricing this high seemed like a very risky move, but would later be crucial to the company's success. They also decided on the now famous slogan, "Red Bull gives you wings," to represent a product that provides energy, focus, and potential. This would later cause controversy though. But for now, in 1987, Red Bull was finally ready to be released in the West. Quick question for you. Do you struggle to find unbiased financial news that's actually interesting and relevant? Well, I think I have the solution for you with today's video sponsor, The Daily Upside, a free business and investing email newsletter that over 750,000 people subscribe to, myself included. It's really interesting and witty, but the reason I like it so much is that they provide real analysis of the most important news of the day. So unlike traditional media where their headlines are filled with clickbait and fear-mongering, The Daily Upside gives you calm, collected insights from a team of financial professionals. Every weekday morning, they send you one email with a brief of the most important news, along with interesting stories that are shaping the business world. For example, I recently read about how TikTok is building out an e-commerce supply chain and how it could be trying to create an all-in-one everything app. As someone who looks to stay on top of the news to create videos like this, I can't recommend this newsletter enough. And it's completely free to sign up if you use the link in the description below. It only takes a few seconds to sign up, and if you don't love it, you can always unsubscribe. So visit the link in the description to learn more now. On April 1st, 1987, Red Bull launched in Austria, and to create the premium feel Dietrich wanted, the beverage was initially offered at trendy Austrian ski resorts. To begin with, Red Bull had a very small team of just a single secretary and a 6-person sales force, and since they had an extremely small marketing budget, Dietrich knew he couldn't afford expensive TV ads or elaborate campaigns like other drinks companies. Instead, he initially relied on more creative, lower-cost marketing strategies to spread the word about Red Bull. Firstly, they reached out to popular, charismatic, and influential college students. They would then give them cases of Red Bull for free and have them drive around campus in Mini Coopers decorated with enormous Red Bull cans on top. They also gave these students money to throw parties where Red Bull was given out. The idea was that these popular students would shape the buying habits of their friends and fellow students. In fact, they even started hiring attractive women to be Red Bull girls and just hand out free drinks on university campuses. Meanwhile, Red Bull salespeople, called musketeers, offered free coolers to bars, inspiring bartenders to feature the beverage in new cocktails, which helped Red Bull become known as a mixer with alcoholic drinks. Red Bull even began leaving empty cans in bars and nightclubs so that people would constantly see the logo and be curious to try the drink themselves. All these tactics proved successful, and Red Bull sold over 1 million cans in the first year. However, financially, they actually made a loss that year, since they'd given away so many free products as part of their marketing schemes. But Dietrich knew that investing in their brand, especially in the early stages, would pay dividends later. And he was right. By the second year, sales doubled to 2 million cans, and again to 4 million cans by the third year. Red Bull spread across Europe, and at one point got so popular in Germany that they actually couldn't produce enough cans to keep up with the demand. Of course, despite the growth, competing in mainstream advertising like TV ads was still a very expensive option. But Dietrich had always loved extreme sports, and realized that very few big companies seemed to be sponsoring these events, like for example, cliff diving. Sponsoring extreme sports helped sell Red Bull as more than just an energy drink, but a lifestyle. Red Bull became associated with daredevils and high adrenaline activities. By 1997, Red Bull was ready for its US debut, although by that point, the energy drink market had become a $1.7 billion business, and thus a lot more competition had entered the market. And unlike other beverage rivals such as Coca-Cola, Red Bull had no secret patented formula. All the ingredients are clearly labeled on the can. And initially, Red Bull literally just offered one flavor, which typically performed poorly in taste tests. And yet, despite all this, Red Bull sales continued to rise. In an interview, Dietrich was asked why he didn't try to make a better tasting product, to which he replied that Red Bull was never about the product itself, but building a brand around an experience. You see, at its core, Red Bull never set out to be a beverage company. It was a storytelling company. The goal was to bring customers into the evolving myth instead of trying to cram a product into their lives. To achieve this, the company had taken great efforts to attach itself to a growing collection of events and spectacles that entice customers to the brand. Red Bull spends far more than most companies on marketing, but instead of merely running ads on why you should buy the drink or sponsoring a single event, Red Bull will purchase entire sports teams, construct in-house media companies, and host world-class events. It all began with Austrian Formula One legend Gerhard Berger, who became Red Bull's first sponsored athlete in 1989. But today, the company sponsors over 500 athletes, daredevils, and adventurers, spanning the entire field of professional and amateur sports, from football to ice hockey to Formula One, and now even esports. Interestingly, this has actually opened up other revenue streams for the company. For example, they make money from Formula One prizes and sponsorships, giving them yet more money to reinvest in marketing. But this long-term approach is extremely effective because, for example, by owning a team like the New York Red Bulls, every time the media or fans are discussing the team, it's naturally bringing Red Bull into conversation and people's subconscious. The company has even invented its own sporting events. The Flugtag, created in 2000, is the German word for flying day. During this event Red Bull created, hundreds of teams worldwide compete in homemade flying machines to see how far their wild creations can fly. And if you're wondering, the current record stands at 258 feet. By creating events in which its product can be served and its brand narrative can unfold, Red Bull has again successfully turned expenses into a successful revenue stream all on its own. Outside of the world of sports, Red Bull also sponsors art and music events such as Lollapalooza and Austin City Limits. And of course, by 2012, the company was sending daredevils to the edge of space to jump out and freefall at over 800 miles an hour. And despite taking years to plan and tens of millions of dollars, it seems like this was worth it. The YouTube video of this set a world record for most concurrent live streams and has gone on to reach well over 120 million views. And right after this, the company saw global sales rise by 13%. When Red Bull create these memorable events or set world records, they're often talked about or watched long after they happen, providing a great steady long-term return on their investment. But here's the most interesting and unique part of Red Bull's strategy. During all of these events and spectacles the company puts on, they hardly ever refer to their drink. For example, with Felix Baumgartner's record-breaking freefall, most companies would probably have made sure that when he landed, he was seen drinking a can of Red Bull, but there was no mention of the drink. And that's because Red Bull's advertising so often doesn't feel like advertising. Red Bull aim for brand recognition rather than actively selling their products. They tried to make something genuinely exciting for their audience to simply associate their brand with incredible things. And in a world where we are inundated with ads in our face and sales pitches, this more subtle approach is effective, as then it doesn't cheapen the spectacle. it doesn't feel like we're watching an ad. It feels like we're just watching something cool from a company who happens to also sell energy drinks. The truth is, Red Bull isn't really a drinks company, it's a marketing company. And as a result, they've been able to position Red Bull as more of a premium lifestyle product, which is ironic because it's the total opposite of how it began in Thailand for blue-collar workers. Red Bull started out as the cheapest energy drink, now it's one of the most expensive. The recipe hasn't really changed, that's just the power of great marketing and branding. As a result, in some countries today, Red Bull has more than 80% market share of energy drinks. And since 1987, over 100 billion cans have been sold worldwide. However, you don't become the #1 energy drink without a little controversy. Red Bull has been banned in numerous countries over the years, most famously in France. When a teenager died after drinking multiple cans of Red Bull during a basketball match, there was understandably a lot of panic. Now, there was no evidence actually found that Red Bull caused the death, but it still prompted accusations that the drink's caffeine content was excessive and that some of Red Bull's other ingredients might not be as safe as they made out. However, by 2008, the full version of Red Bull was for sale in France again, since Red Bull successfully argued there wasn't sufficient evidence that any of the ingredients were harmful. I mean, it wasn't exactly healthy, but not unhealthy enough to be banned. Then in Germany in 2009, Red Bull Cola was found to contain trace amounts of cocaine, causing some German states to pull the drink as well. But once again, after further research, it was found to be such a negligible amount that you'd have to drink almost impossible amounts to actually feel anything. So the drink was reinstated there too. In 2013, Red Bull came under fire again when it was sued for false advertising over its slogan, "Red Bull gives you wings." Now, to be fair to Red Bull here, surely nobody actually expected to grow literal wings and fly, so this lawsuit seemed like a frivolous cash grab. But they managed to argue that since Red Bull didn't give any functional athletic improvement, it was false advertising, and Red Bull ended up paying $13 million to settle the lawsuit. Now, so far all of these issues seem kinda harsh against Red Bull, but actually the real controversy about Red Bull is the one that most people in the West don't even seem to know about. You see, in 2012, the heir to Red Bull's fortune, Chaleo's grandson, was accused of running over a policeman and killing him while speeding in his Ferrari. It's then reported he didn't attend court and instead fled the country. Despite there being seemingly overwhelming evidence against him, the case has not been pursued. And in Thailand, it's seen as an egregious example of how the ultra wealthy and powerful are above the law and can get away with anything. This prompted headlines like Red Bull heir shows how to get away with killing a cop in Thailand, with some even starting a campaign to boycott Red Bull. Now, to be fair, it's not like the heir to Red Bull's fortune was actually involved in running the company, but it's certainly a stain on the perfect image that Red Bull spends so much money to maintain. However, Red Bull's original creator Chaleo would not be around to see that, as he died just a few months before the incident in March 2012, aged 88. When he passed away, he was Thailand's third richest person with an estimated $5 billion fortune. And in fact, to this day, his co-founder Dietrich is the richest person in Austria. That's because Red Bull is still a private company. The founders never had to sell loads of their equity, as they had such great profit margins and could keep reinvesting back into the business using the profits they made. So they both became obscenely wealthy. And actually, I think there's several lessons all of us should be learning from Red Bull. Firstly, Red Bull is proof that sometimes you don't need to invent something totally new. You can bring an existing product to a new market or audience and have massive success by just putting your own spin on it. Secondly, it's clearly a very effective strategy to find a product that's cheap to manufacture and then invest heavily in marketing to create a more premium feel and brand image for the product so you can charge higher prices. That'll give you high profit margins, giving you huge amounts of money to invest in even more marketing, and thus create a virtuous cycle of growth. For context, some sources have estimated Red Bull costs about 9 cents per can to make, yet they sell them for $1.79 or more. And finally, Red Bull is a reminder that the best marketing is not just running ads the exact same way everyone else does, it's actually doing something creative and original. Because the ultimate lesson from Red Bull is to not just sell a product, but sell a feeling, sell an image. And there is perhaps just one company that has done an even better job of this than Red Bull. If you want to learn the dark secrets of how Coca-Cola make billions of dollars despite all of the controversies they've been involved with, check out the disturbing history of Coca-Cola by clicking right here. Trust me, it's a crazy one. I'll see you there. Cheers.